As a preliminary matter, this is Mason Ferret, Conservation Agent of the Newbury Conservation Commission, and I call the March 4th meeting to order and permit me to confirm that all members are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mary Rimmer,
Yes.
Mick Brown, Diane O'Brien,
Yes.
Woody Knight, Bob Connors, and Frank Wettenkamp.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. This open meeting of the Newbury Conservation Commission is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we've been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Newbury Conservation Commission is convening by Zoom call as posted on the agenda of the Conservation Commission section of the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Applicants or their representatives may be called upon on the fly to speak and or share information to the screen if able. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda, but before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your microphones, please use earbuds, and please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. Board and committee members should be called upon in a first name alphabetical order to ease the process. After board and committee members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will first seek questions through the chat function. When participants are using this function, please list your name, address, then your question. The chair will then seek questions from the public who wish to speak. They'll be asked to identify their names and address, question, and once the chair has a list of all public commentators, they'll call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote.
Thanks, Mason. So upcoming meeting dates are March 18th and April 1st. We have minutes to review from the February 18th meeting that were posted in the Dropbox. And I had one minor comment on that. Mason, on the Riverview Drive enforcement order, where it says applicants have proposed and after the fact RDA, I would just change that now to received.
Yep.
And I missed half of that meeting, so I don't think I can vote.
Well, I missed half of it as well. So maybe we postpone the approval of these minutes to the next meeting. That's okay.
I take your half and you take my half.
I know. All right, so then we'll move right ahead to the next item on the agenda, which is 8 Plumbush Downs. Applicants are submitting a request for determination of applicability for the renovation of a home on Plumbush Downs. The dwelling is within 100 feet of the salt marsh, but will have no expansion outside the existing footprint, upward extension only. And I'm not sure if that's still the case, but do we have the applicant present for this project? Okay, Mason, do you have any updates for us before we get started?
No, I believe that they have reduced the scope of their project to just be the upward extension now. And I'll just add that with that, Peter had sent over the substantial improvement letter, giving that the approval. But besides that, I'll let Tammy and Margaret explain.
Great. Welcome, and please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, hello, this is Tammy Pearlstein, and with me I have Margaret Wallace, property owners of 8 Plumbush Downs in Newbury. Good to see everyone who was at the last meeting. For those we haven't met yet, nice to meet you. We, per our conversation a couple weeks ago, right, 2 weeks ago now, really went back and thought about what makes sense moving forward based on some of the feedback from the committee members. And we would like to propose, and I do have a drawing, or an updated drawing. So Mason, would you mind just giving me sharing screen abilities to just revert back to the only upward extension plan as stated in the initial submission of the RDA?
And while Mason's doing
good
that,
to
I'll
share.
just note that Woody entered the meeting at the beginning of this public discussion. And I also wanted to point out that I was not present at the last meeting, but will you guys continue from the meeting before or to the last meeting?
The February 18th.
Okay,
meeting. Yes.
all right, thank you. I missed some of that meeting, but I did review the video, so I'm up to date.
Yeah, of course. And we're open to any questions and feedback as we work through some of the notes that we have here. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Can everyone see this okay?
Yes,
Okay, perfect. So on the left-hand side, you do have current, and on the right-hand side, you do have proposed. We also have a table in the bottom right corner that articulates the work in more of a metric format for us to really level set during this conversation. So as we mentioned, we've really pulled back the scope of this project based on our initial conversation at the previous meeting. So again, as you can see here, this upward extension is really, the project entails an enclosement of this front porch, which is a part of the existing footprint. So we are going to make that a roofed covering space to extend the internal livable space. We do have some non-compliant brick that is on the property today, so we are planning to remove that brick and replant with new shrubbery and seagrass. And then the only addition you can see on the right-hand side is a proposed gravel underneath the propane tanks which will be holstered to the back of the shed so as not to float away, as we've heard from some other neighbors. So there's really not much of a shift here aside from that enclosure of the front porch. But as you can see, we've laid out the shift in building, brick, gravel, pea stone, and then the addition of the newly planted shrubs here for a net delta of 105.
okay, thanks. That's very helpful. Great presentation. And I just want to understand, you are in the floodplain in this for this site, correct?
Yes.
So do you have to elevate your propane tanks? Was that discussed with the building department?
Yep, so they've recommended that we elevate them, and that is the plan to have these, on the right-hand side here of this
Okay.
graph, to have them elevated off the ground and securely attached to the back of the shed so as not to risk floating away or
Perfect.
dislodging.
Okay. Great. It looks fairly straightforward to me. And the salt marsh in this image is in which direction?
Salt marsh is on the back.
Back side
Right.
along that timber wall.
Yes.
Okay. It's not indicated on the plan, so we don't have really an indication of where the buffer zone is here, but it looks like it's the entire unit is probably in the buffer zone. That's 32 feet from the back of the building. If I'm
So
reading that correct,
38.
38 feet,
38.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So most of the house is within the buffer zone to the salt marsh. And the plantings you're proposing will be native plants, coastal native plants.
Yes.
Great. So I'll turn it back to the members and just go in the order I see you with the screen here. So Diane, first, do you have any comments?
When you're building over the deck, do you need to put new supports into the ground or anything to support the roof or the second floor that's going on there?
So we do have existing steel piles already in place. We will be inserting into the seal, so between the second and first floor, a steel beam for added support for the additional floors. That will be interior, obviously. And we're, per our meeting on site with Peter, he didn't indicate that we would need any additional piles at this time since there was already footings in place.
Okay, so the architect or whoever, the structural person that's doing the building hasn't said you need anything more, so.
Not at this time, no.
Okay, so nothing else is going into the ground, is all
Correct.
up. And I was not at the prior meeting when they discussed this, so I don't know, Mary, if that would make a difference with me voting or not. But I've gone through the file and I've listened to today, so I don't know.
Nick?
The only question is like, are you pouring in a pad for those, for your propane tanks, or how are you securing them so they don't float away?
Want to take that one?
I guess initial plan was to create something off the back of the shed to not have them touching the ground. I know they have to be elevated, so I guess harnessed in a way off the back of the shed. Yeah,
And then-
that was the advice that we were given, to just
Yep.
harness them to the back of the shed. I don't know how many feet off the ground.
Yeah, and then just gravel underneath the propane, so there is that footing there. And it's not on top of just grass.
Yeah, so you're not pouring a pad and
No,
increasing
no, no,
like
no.
impervious surface. Okay. Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Mick.
Good, thank you.
Frank, you have any
Yeah.
questions?
No, it looks pretty straightforward. I'm all set.
Okay, thanks. Woody?
No, I'm good with questions and comments. I did notice that the shed's gonna just stay the same size and not be moved, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all. Thank you, Mary.
Okay, and do we have any members of the public that would like to comment on this project? Any raised hands or anything in the chat?
Seeing none.
All right, thanks. Based on this information, do we have a recommendation for issuance of a determination of applicability on this? I'll discuss special conditions in a second motion.
Are you looking for a motion
A
to?
motion to issue a negative
Negative
determination.
determination, so moved.
Second,
All in favor? Mick?
Aye.
Yep, Frank,
yes.
Woody,
Yes,
and Diane, you like to abstain?
I think I have to because I didn't hear it at the last meeting.
Okay, no problem. So the motion carries for a negative determination, and then special conditions. I think, we're elevating the propane tanks, Mason, and using the only native coastal plantings from the coastal zone management plant list.
Yep.
And just sending a photograph of to the brief report to the commission when the work is completed. So, does anybody else have any other conditions? That sound okay? All right, so do we have a motion to approve those conditions? Mick,
So move.
Second,
all in favor? Mick again,
Aye.
Frank
aye.
and Woody,
yes.
and I also vote yes as well. So you should be all set. Then Mason will get you the paperwork, and good luck with your project.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
everyone. Great to see
Appreciate it.
you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is 105 Northern Boulevard. This is a request for determination to replace the previously existing deck in the backyard area. The applicant also wants to add 2-foot wide bluestone to create a walking path around the deck to the side of the house. Historic aerials are provided to show the previously deconstructed deck. Mason, do we have an update on this?
Yeah, so there was an existing wooden deck and walkway in the backyard. I can share some pictures here. You can see, and the applicant had started to remove it, and I believe he was told to stop. This was right before I came, and so he's now coming in for an RDA to replace it. The proposal is slightly closer to the house in the existing deck. He's proposing a 12 by 12 deck elevated, and then, like you mentioned, a bluestone path, which will be less than 30 inches wide for each of those stones. So I can also share the site plan. Believe the applicant is here to answer any questions as well.
Yes. Do we have the applicant here?
Yes,
Please identify yourself for the record
Jim Williams.
And Heidi Schrag,
and your address.
105 Northern Boulevard.
Perfect, thank you. Did you want to add anything further to Mason's description of your project?
No, I mean, the deck was on the ground. And it was, I probably shouldn't have taken it up before I did this, but it kind of went along with that other project that I had going on here, so if I can get it back, that would be great. If not, oh well, but when I talked to Mason, he said it's probably best to do an RDA. And
Okay.
I think the deck was around 12 by 12, so anywhere around 144 square feet. But if it has to be smaller, I'll make it smaller, whatever it takes to be able to put it back.
Okay. And how high will it be elevated above the ground?
Well, I was gonna put it was on like 4-inch concrete blocks right on the sand, basically. That's basically where I was gonna keep it.
Okay. And you mentioned there's an ongoing project as well. Do we have an
Well,
open order of conditions?
We planted seagrass last year and Mary, you wanted a second planting season, so we're gonna.
Right, okay, this is that project. Okay, got it. Okay, and then this is in a velocity zone, so we don't typically approve stone pathways. Most of the reason being because you're in a velocity zone, which means high velocity wave actions during up to 100-year storm event. Anything that you put on the ground like that has a potential for becoming a projectile in a storm event. So typically it's crushed shell or pea stone walkways that we've approved. So
All right.
have some discussion with that with the other members and see if they're in agreement with that. The deck had nothing to do with the previous enforcement order, so I think you're okay with that.
All right. Well, the stones, Mary, they're pretty heavy. I can't imagine the bluestone. I mean, the wood deck that was there, they were popping up as I was walking on them. They'd be more of a projectile than what was there.
Mhm.
So, but whatever it takes to be able to get a walkway out to that back driveway, that would be ideal.
Okay, so I'm going to open it up to the members. Looking at Frank, do you have any comments on this?
I'm not sure, is a 4-inch block elevation adequate for the deck in that velocity zone?
It doesn't meet current standards, but it does need to tie into the existing house. So I'm not sure how you would, if are there steps up to the first floor, or
Yeah, there's steps up to my existing deck.
so it's possible to elevate it further so that it matches the existing deck?
If I could do that, and I talked to the building inspector because the deck is kind of falling down. So Bob had told me maybe talk to the building inspector. I might have to incorporate it into this RDA, but the building inspector said if we're keeping the deck existing footprint and fixing it, he said he'd come out and would go over what needed to be done. But if I can put this other deck, if I can elevate it and put it up on like diamond piers is what the building inspector said, would probably work best. Take whatever concrete piers that are in the ground now holding the other deck up. And part of it's kind of just sitting on the sand. It's kind of a health hazard right now, so if I can raise the other deck, that would be ideal. But I didn't want to go outside the footprint, the other deck was basically just sitting on the ground on like 1.5-inch solid block right on the sand. So if that's all I could do, then that's what I was gonna do.
Mason, can you put up the photo again?
Mhm.
So the part that's being rebuilt is where in this photo?
It's, you can kind of see it on the top left picture by the hammock. It's right next to the hammock. And there was stairs that went down into down into the driveway, and it was all like creosote soaked railroad ties that I had taken out, and I just replaced it with pressure treated.
Yep.
That
Okay.
was,
I understand a little better now. So you're, so
oh yeah, you
rebuilding,
could kind of see the deck on the top right picture too, you know? That's
Yeah.
just sitting right on the sand, really, you know?
right, so that doesn't comply anymore. So we need to have a little bit more detail on your drawing, and what the elevation ultimately is gonna be of the deck.
Can I would I be able to raise it up, Mary, if I make it the equivalent height of the deck that I have now?
Yep, and show us where your stairs are gonna go. That would be a preferred plan.
That would be awesome. All right, that would be perfect. If I can raise the deck,
So
just get a
you-
bigger deck.
Right, so you would have to continue this discussion to another meeting and submit a new plan.
So
order to
one
do
other
that.
question, if you look at that picture that just showed the house. If you look at the existing deck as it sits right now, you can almost see a wooden deck underneath my deck, and it's got a hot tub in it. Can that deck stay?
I can't see the image well enough to be able to tell.
It's the big picture. Actually, go down a little bit. Right there, that one. It's underneath my existing deck. You can see there's another deck on the ground with a hot
Yep.
tub on top of it.
Yep.
Can I keep that deck?
Well, how long has that been in place?
That's been there forever. There's a hot
Yeah.
tub.
Yeah.
So that can stay? And I could just put a new hot tub in?
You can continue to maintain it as it is right now. If
Perfect.
you're rebuilding the entire deck, then we might want to revisit that.
All right.
If you know, I don't think we need
All
to
right.
have it taken out at this point in your, where it's a previous existing condition.
All right. That's perfect.
So before I ask you about a continuance, I just wanted to make sure we have, all the other members have a chance to weigh in on this. Frank, did you have any other comments?
No, that's all. Thank you, Mary.
Okay. Woody, do you have anything?
No, I'm good for now. Thank you, Mary.
Okay. Diane?
Honestly, I'm not really sure when you're referring to two different decks, the one that's sort of out there on the ground. And
Yep.
then had you previously removed another deck that now you want to put back? Is that?
No, the only walkway and deck I took down is the one that's right on the ground. The one that is underneath my existing deck now with the hot tub on it,
Yeah.
that's existing, that's been like that, but it's out of level, but if I take it out, then I'll never be able to get it back in, so I'm wondering if I could just level that deck off and put a new hot tub in. That would be ideal if I could do something like that, or do I need another RDA to try to
You
save
can
that?
keep this open with additional plans, but you may want to talk to the building inspector a little bit more about.
All
what
right,
your
yep,
plans
that's
are.
right. I mean, I talked to him.
Yeah, because
He said as
did
long as
prior one
this-
was 12 by 12. So is that one that the wood walk leads out to? Is that gone now?
Yes.
Is this a current picture?
Yeah, that's
or is
all
this-
gone. That's all just sand and seagrass now.
So that, okay, that's what was getting me confused. So this is an old picture. It's not.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the picture of when I bought the house a year ago. Or
So
a year.
you're asking to put back a deck that was taken up a year ago.
Yeah, I took it out about a year ago.
Okay.
And did you want to keep that deck that's on the ground now, or that's gone already anyway? So
Well, the one with the hot tub on it's still there, so I
Right, but
won't
that-
even touch that one.
the walkway and the at-grade deck are gone.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
that's what is in question, if I could put that back.
But you want to put it back, but attach it to your existing deck, not put it.
I wasn't going to. I just wanted, if we can, I definitely will if I could make my deck bigger. But if I can't, I was just seeing if I could put back what was there when I bought the house. I didn't realize if I took something up, I couldn't put it back.
Yeah, I think
But it-
that's what it comes down to, the fact that it's been missing for a while, but I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I mean, it looks like historically it was there like a year or so ago. And maybe can it be seen as some sort of continuation of the project that started a year ago? To allow it to just kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can also just look at it as a new project, a new deck expansion project.
Mhm. Yeah, I just think if you're gonna be submitting something new, just more of maybe like of an explanation or a picture of what you're doing.
Yeah, well, we need some construction plans. We need, you know, if you're gonna have steps. And then really to consider the walkway material, for something other than stone. Those are my comments.
Would pea stone work instead of the bluestone?
Yep.
Okay. I can do that.
I'm out of order here. So Mick, did you have any oh, I'm sorry, Diane, are you finished or you still
Yeah.
have more comments? Okay. Mick?
I'm unfamiliar with the property, so I was just trying to wrap my head around what's existing, what's
Yeah.
not existing, and what's proposed.
Yeah.
I don't know if a quick site visit would be warranted, just so we can all kind of convene on what the improvements are gonna be. I mean, I'd feel a little bit better, but if, you know, that's a consensus decision, I guess, so. Yeah, it's tough for me to make a call because I really don't understand
Yeah.
what's existing, what's gone, what's proposed, so.
Understood. And who did I miss? Woody?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Mary.
Okay. So if we're gonna be looking at a new plan, and you can request a continuance of this discussion and we can schedule a site visit when you have the new plan in place. We can set that up through Mason so that we have a chance to take a look at the site before the meeting for whatever next meeting it is that you're ready to present this.
Well, that's fine.
Okay.
So one question, Mary, if I have something drawn up, if I have drawings of that deck being elevated, is that gonna pose a problem going outside the footprint?
The footprint of the existing deck that's there now. Yeah,
Yeah, is that
you
gonna
can-
pose any problems for
I
me
mean,
or
that's what you'd be requesting permission for. So that's what we would have to review to make sure that it complies with the regulations. So we'd have to
Okay.
see what you present. If it's elevated up over the ground, it's, you know, you maintain it open underneath. It needs to be at least 2 feet above grade, you know, the
Yeah,
platform. And
all
then,
right.
and the pilings are diamond piers like you had mentioned, or
right.
what was the other? Some other type of pier that the building inspector.
Helical pairs or
Helicals.
diamond pairs?
Yeah.
Bob?
Yeah.
Bob had mentioned to me with the deck, not so much a dwelling, the deck you can, the
Do the helicals. Yeah.
diamond pairs kind of work.
Okay, either way,
But-
that's fine.
So if we even step the deck down to 2 feet, that would, I'll have something drawn up then.
Don't you
And we'll
get lot
propose it.
coverage issues?
What's that?
You'll have to check your lot coverage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna get into lot coverage issues if you are adding a new deck, if you're not replacing what was already there.
Okay, so so basically there's no way we can put back what was there.
It depends on your lot coverage requirement. Yeah. So
I
you'll
think we
need
have a
to-
double lot. We got a pretty good sized lot and the house is extremely small.
you may be
so-
okay, just you have to confirm with the building inspector while you're
Okay.
preparing the plan.
All right, that sounds good. Maybe I'll have the building inspector out, look at it. And he wanted to talk to me about it anyways. And before I have drawings made, I'll make sure it's good with him and then I'll have drawings made and I'll bring it back to you guys. All right,
So would you like to continue to the meeting on, our next meeting is what, the 18th, Mason?
Correct, yep,
Or the following meeting is April
April 1st.
1st?
I don't know if you see my drawing that I drew, but if you want drawings, I don't know if I can have it all in by next month's meeting, but I'll keep Mason up to date if, as far as, you know, what's going on.
Okay,
If I,
well,
if I have
we have-
plans made,
Yeah, we have to continue it to this date certain, so if you want us to put it on April 1st and it turns out that you need a continuance from that, we can arrange that as well.
all right, then let's do that. I'll do my
Okay.
best to get plans drawn.
All right, we need them a week before the meeting.
All right, perfect. Sounds good.
All right, so with the applicant's consent, do we have a motion to continue this discussion on 105 Northern Boulevard until April 1st?
So moved.
Second,
That was Woody and Diane and motion what do I have to do? All in favor? There we go. Hand. Is that a yes?
I thought you said and, yes, Diane.
Oh,
yes.
sorry. Frank,
Yes.
Woody,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes,
and I vote yes as well.
All right,
We'll be in touch. Or you'll
perfect.
be in
Thank you,
touch with
everyone.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay, moving on to enforcement orders. We don't really have any updates on the enforcement orders at this point. It looks like they all are waiting for later in the growing season or for work to be completed. So we'll skip over enforcement orders. We have no extension requests. We have no certificates of compliance tonight, so we're running a little ahead of our agenda, but that's okay. So we can begin the public hearing notice part of the meeting. And the first public hearing is for DEP file number 0501443-173 Hay Street, Kents Island Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, submitting a notice of intent for ecological restoration limited project for habitat restoration work at the William Ford Wildlife Management Area. Management techniques include invasive plant control, general vegetation, prescribed fire and timber harvest. Project documents include maps of the project area. So since the last meeting, we have had a site visit and Diane and I were able to attend that. And we do have some updated plans. And I see that Ben is here. So Ben, if you could introduce yourself one more time for the record and we can take a look at the new material that you submitted.
Sure. Ben Mazie, I work for Massachusetts Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, and I'm working on this project at Kents Island. Happy to answer any additional questions.
Okay, so during the site walk, it was really helpful to see, in person, the areas that were in question. I see that you've added wetland flags along the salt marsh and also in the area where some of the invasive species treatments are proposed. And you've added the buffer zones to the salt marsh, which I assume is that kind of light blue area.
Yep.
Salt marsh buffer. Okay, yep, I see that now. And I understand that the majority of the timber harvesting has been going on under forest cutting plan in the upland area, separate from this notice of intent, and this notice of intent is for the portion of the timber harvesting that's happening in the buffer zone only.
Yes.
And we went through a little bit what the techniques will be using a feller buncher and cutting and removing of the timber, which is mostly Norway spruce in the area that we looked at. Are there other areas that have a different? There was some red pine, I think you had mentioned.
Yeah, there's a mix of red pine, Norway spruce is primarily what's being removed. Yep.
Right. And he did also tag the trees to remain in place, which weren't very many in these stands where they're really dense, almost monoculture of these non-native trees, but those were marked with an X so that the contractor who's going to be doing this work will avoid any of the native species. There was some discussion at the last meeting that I understood there was to be updated plan and from this in combination with the previous plan that showed the different work areas. I think we have to flip back and forth a little bit between the plans that shows where the actual treatment areas are. That's different from that plan that shows the wetland boundaries. Do we have that plan, Mason?
Yep, 1 second. This is the one?
Yes. So the yellow areas are where I think there might be a topo there. Oh, is that plantation tree removal? Is that what that's supposed to say? At the bottom?
Yes, yep, I can't spell, and I guess there was a spell check on in ArcGIS, so
Okay,
yeah.
just so I understand what that means. So 2 areas in the buffer zone for tree removal, those are the only areas that you're proposing to do that in the buffer zone, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay. And my concern would be that that the wetlands have been delineated along that stretch there. So we know where the limit of the salt marsh is, and you'll know where the 100-foot buffer zone is from that. You can measure from that. I think that it would be helpful, you know, to have a couple of stakes or something out for your crew, or some kind of georeferencing on site so that they know when they enter the buffer zone. And that there be some protection along the edge of the wetland, because you're essentially going to denude the entire slope there of vegetation, and it could be susceptible to erosion. It is a slope. So I'd like to see some kind of erosion control barrier along the salt marsh, just upgrading of the flagged boundary of salt marsh. So we have some protection during the restoration time frame. I know you're going to seed it when you're done, but it takes a little while for that to take, and there's some potential for erosion during that time.
sure, we can do that.
And are you guys on site during all the clearing? I know you're subcontracting this, but is someone from DFW on staff overseeing during all this time?
I'm there just about every day, but if they were gonna be cutting in the buffer zone, any regulated areas like that, then I would be on site for all that operation, yep.
Okay, that's good news, because I'd
Yep.
like to see that. The invasive species treatment is mostly, I understood, to be foliar spraying now and not cut and treat. It's primarily foliar spray. Is that what you're proposing
Yeah, so
for
in
the
the, I
upland
think
areas?
I proposed both for some of the bittersweet vines that are in the tops canopies of the trees. Those will have to be cut stemmed. And then shrubs that are over 5 feet tall, typically we don't like to see people spraying foliar into the air, so we do cut stem on those as well. So
Okay, so that's your cutoff, 5 foot?
yep.
Okay. And then in the areas where you're treating in the buffer zone for invasives, those areas, are those areas proposed to be reseeded as well?
No, not at this time. Yeah, we don't, though at this site, because the thickets of invasives are pretty much 90 to 95% cover. It could be something that we could see if we could do with a native wetlands mix. But at this point, we weren't proposing that.
It might be a good idea to do that to get some stabilization, but we could also make that determination after you complete, you know, your initial season of treatment and see what it looks like.
Sure.
One of the things that I was proposing was that, you know, we have some sort of an annual report during the time that you're doing this work. And you'd also requested at the site visit a 5-year order of conditions, which we are able to do.
Sure.
In situations where we know that the work is going to be more long-term than a 3-year order of conditions. So I would be open to that. And that, that we have, we have some sort of pre-construction meeting before initiating work in the buffer zone, so that Mason is up to date with everything, if in case there are any changes, and understands what your schedule is.
Okay.
So this, just general comment, I know that DFW purchased this property for this, to improve habitat on the site. These are areas that are proposing to be treated for invasives, really badly altered by the plant community is pretty significantly altered, and it really does look like a mess in some areas, probably as a result of former farming operations on the site or something, but they're really in tough shape in some of those areas. As far as the Phragmites treatment and the controlled burn, haven't been part of any of those kind of projects. I don't know as much about that, but I do understand that you guys have done this in a lot of places. And I'm taking your word that this does not require any further permitting from DEP or any other state agencies for doing the burning, since they don't consider that the dredge or fill is technically. So that would just presumably be a one and done thing, or would you continue to do the Phragmites burning throughout the 5 years of the
Phragmites would be hopefully one and done, because the initial prescribed fire with it would, like we talked about, reduce all the thatch and the dead leaves, and so then the resprouts would come up. They'd be really obvious, and then we'd treat those. And hopefully that first treatment would be somewhere in the range of 70-75% effective, but enough where we could come back in and then treat individual stems after that the following season, things that didn't get treated well enough the first time. So,
and access to this is on foot, or will you need to bring machinery out there to the islands?
so the only machinery that we would propose would be the Marshmaster, the amphibious low pressure machine. But again, we had talked about, I'm going to have to look into the best access for that on the east side of the train tracks. We do have a bridge across those train tracks, but I don't know enough about what it was built for. So I'll have to do some research on that to determine if it is capable of supporting that Marshmaster. It's not that heavy of a machine, obviously, because of where it typically operates. So if yeah, I'm gonna have to do a little more research on that for accessing the eastern portion with that machine. So we could do some of the treatment. The frag is not what we talked about, is not extensive enough where we potentially could just treat it by walking out to those areas on foot at low tide too. So
those are my thoughts. I'm gonna turn it over to Diane. Do you have any comments?
Yeah, no, I mean, the site visit was great, and Ben did a great job of kind of explaining everything that would be taking place. I honestly didn't have a problem with the project. It was just more about conditioning it, after, once you begin work, just to make sure that things are being monitored even into the 5-year. It seemed it was a really beneficial project for the area. And it's not like you were taking everything out. Everything's basically staying, except for some invasives. And I had no problems with it, other than just scope of work delineations and things like that Mary already mentioned.
Thanks, Diane. Woody, do you have any thoughts?
I unfortunately missed the sidewalk, but I saw Mason today and had a discussion. I'm up to speed on the areas and what's going on here, so I feel comfortable at the moment right now. Thank you.
All right, thanks. And Mick?
Yeah, just no comments or questions. It really, I couldn't make it out to the sidewalk. It's a super interesting project, but hopefully I can make it out to the next one. No comments right now.
And any further comments from the public? Anybody here? Looks like not. Okay, Ben, you had mentioned that you want to start this work within the next few weeks if possible, schedule wise.
Yeah, because we talked about ground conditions, I'm not sure if we're gonna cut in the buffer zone this season or if it's gonna get pushed towards next winter season. I'm just a little concerned about what the weather's doing in the ground conditions. So if the weather holds and we can, then yes, but with 50-degree days coming up in an inch of rain, I'm not so sure that we'll do that. So we are potentially gonna work with the vendors so that those areas will get worked on next winter. But yeah, it's to be seen. I'd love to be able to move forward with the potential for work if conditions hold as soon as possible, and then I could keep Mason or however you all would like me to communicate up to date on ground conditions in our plans. So.
Does anyone else have any further comments or requests for additional information? Okay, I do not see any, so I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing for this project.
Second?
Diane and Mick, sound like? All in favor, Diane,
Yes.
Mick,
Yes.
Woody,
Yes,
and Frank?
Yes.
Great. And so onto special conditions. I had a number of special conditions that I discussed earlier, and a couple of them that weren't included. One is to conduct any work in accordance with any restrictions set by Mass Natural Heritage Program. I think, Ben, you had mentioned there weren't any restrictions, but I'd like to have that in an order.
Sure.
Since we don't have anything specific from them on this project, doesn't look like. Unless there was a letter, was there a letter submitted?
There was, yeah, it was
Okay,
submitted to Heritage, yep. Yeah, it
Okay,
was
good.
reviewed, both the cutting and the grassland conversion. was
Oh, good,
reviewed.
okay, I missed that. Installation of erosion control along the edge of the flagged wetland. A pre-construction meeting at the initiation of work in the buffer zone.
Sure.
With that would be with our agent. A representative from DFW on site during all phases of work in the buffer zone in resource areas. So that would
Yep.
include the Phragmites removal, and buffer zone and wetland treatment for invasives, as well as the tree clearing.
Sure.
And then an annual report of work completed each year, due by December 1st, unless there's a date that works better for you.
If we could, the end of the fiscal years December is really busy just because it's deer check season. So if I could flip it to the summertime, like July, somewhere in July or August 1st would be great. But if that doesn't work for the commission, then I can make December work, but
No, that August 1st is fine as long as we
Okay.
have set it up annually. I think that would be fine with me.
okay. Yeah, whatever meeting's closest to August, or if you just wanted me to do August 1st and submit it to Mason and then he can disseminate it, or I'm happy to come meet with you all again, hopefully virtually, because I don't live that close, so.
And then no other methods of restoration are approved other than what is described in the notice of intent. So if there are additional things, restoration measures that you want to do that weren't included, that would require an additional submission to the commission.
Okay.
And then finally, if there's a heavy equipment that's proposed, like the Marsh Master on the marsh, that we be notified of that prior to the start of work.
Okay, and so prior to the start work, so if we were gonna do a prescribed burn, then I would just let Mason know if the Marsh Master was gonna be involved or not.
Right, so then he could follow up and track it in case there were any
Okay.
issues with using it
Sure.
on site.
Sure.
So should I go ahead, Mason?
Just that if you could repeat the last one, not the heavy equipment one, but the one that you had mentioned right before that.
Oh, any other restoration methods not proposed but not included in your notice of intent require an additional submission. Diane?
Did you say if this was a 3-year or 5-year?
Well, they're proposing 5 years. We haven't voted on that yet, but
Okay,
I should, yeah, include that in the motion, I suppose.
one or the other. And then did you mention, I might have missed it, the delineation of the scope of work to be performed when there was that in there?
Um,
So mark off where they're gonna be doing the work? Or is that, did you?
it's shown on the plan. Oh, where they're gonna,
the stakes for the buffer zone?
is that what you mean? Okay, stake off the buffer zone?
Yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, should we go back on the motion and say if it's for 5 or 3?
We haven't made a motion on this yet.
Oh, okay. Oh, we closed the meeting, sorry.
Yeah. So we're just, but we can still take a vote on
Yep.
the term. And we can wrap it up into this, if there are no objections, we can wrap it up into the same motion with other conditions that were just described. So I can go through them again if you want. Would that be helpful for everybody or?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, 5-year order of conditions. So that's checked on the form. There's something on the form that you can make that a special condition as well. Installation of erosion control along upland of the flagged wetland prior to tree clearing. The pre-construction meeting prior to the initiation of work with Mason, with the conservation agent. A representative from DFW to be on site during all phases of construction in the resource area or buffer zone. I should say restoration, not construction. And an annual report of work completed to be submitted by August 1st of each year during the time period that the order of conditions is valid. And then there was 2 others. Any restoration methods not specified in the notice of intent would require additional approval. And any heavy equipment used on the marsh requires prior notification to the commission.
Are you also including the staking in the field?
The staking of the buffer zone. Thank you. I
Okay,
missed that
yep.
one again. Anybody have any further comments?
I do not.
Okay, and do I have a motion to accept those conditions?
So moved.
Second,
Diane and Woody, and all in favor, Diane,
Yes.
Woody,
yes.
Frank,
Yes.
and Mick.
Yes.
Okay, great. So Ben, we'll work to get those drafted. It might take a little bit because it's a little bit of a more involved order of conditions, but we'll get that out to you as soon as we can.
Perfect. I just wanted to take a minute and thank everybody for all the help. Appreciate you all coming to the site and putting up with me over the last month and a half. So thank you.
Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is DEP file number is not listed on the agenda, but I know we do have one.
The file number is 1444.
0501444 for 80 Northern Boulevard. Applicant is submitting a notice of intent for the demolition and removal of the existing single-family dwelling. The existing garage on site will remain untouched and the construction of a new single-family home will follow the demolition process. Additional site improvements are also outlined in the notice of intent. Project site is located on or within a primary frontal dune. Before we get to the applicant, Mason, do you have any updates on this project?
I would just, so the scope of the project has changed and Al can present that, but if I would just point the commission to the technical comments that DEP made. But just to keep in mind that this is from the original submission, so these comments are not reflective on the updated plans that we'll be seeing tonight, but just to kind of keep that in mind as we go forward.
Okay, thanks. And is the applicant here?
Yep, Al is here.
Al, would you reintroduce yourself to the board for the record and provide your address?
Sure, my name is Al Ward and the address is 80 Northern Boulevard.
Thanks. And why don't you tell us what your plan changes are?
Sure, well, TJ from Millennium, I believe, has kind of a more in-depth explanation, but we had, after we submitted our original plan, we had spoken with a neighbor who voiced some concern about making sure that the health of the dune between our two homes was preserved as best possible. And we met for a little bit and kind of went back and forth a little to try to accommodate his concern, which we share. We definitely want to make sure that that's a very valuable dune, and we want to make sure that it stays healthy. So we kind of followed the suggestions they brought forth to basically move the house a little bit to get it completely off of that dune in between us, as well as take some other steps. TJ, I could hand it over to you if you're there to continue with a little more detail.
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. TJ Melvin with Millennium Engineering. As Al had mentioned, we've gone back and forth on a few iterations of this. Al's really trying to work with his neighbor to make sure everyone's comfortable with the project. So since the original plan, we slid the house closer to Northern Boulevard within the front setback, which we are in front of the zoning board for approval on that as well. And in making this change, it's actually kind of helped to answer some of the DEP questions, which I can circle back to. Since the original submittal, what we've done is we've broken up the vegetation disturbance, which we can see on the existing conditions side, right, the other side of the existing conditions. So we just called it all out as vegetation. We've since broken it out as natural dune vegetation versus turf lawn and kind of a flower planting area. And we've updated the table as well to reflect that. So with this project, we're obviously removing a existing dwelling that's at grade, portion of a paved driveway, putting the new structure up in the air, and removing the pavement and replacing it with clean wash stone. The footprint itself is about 400 square feet larger than the existing, and we're moving about 850 square feet of pavement. So we're in total reducing about 400 square feet of impervious surface on the site and replacing it with dune compatible materials. As Al had alluded to, we really wanted to shift that back right corner as you're looking at it off of the dune between the two properties. So we get it down just off the base of that dune, which kind of leads to one of DEP's comments about trying to reduce the amount of the crushed stone or the clean wash stone posed on site. By moving it forward, we save a fair amount of driveway area that was otherwise going to be clean wash stone. So that number has been reduced. We are proposing restoration plantings to account for the natural dune vegetation that will be disturbed in order to install the clean wash stone. So we've identified just 3 various areas requiring a total replacement of 910 square feet to account for any of the disturbed area. And I believe that is all of the changes that have been made. I'd be happy to go through any other specific aspects if the commission wishes, or I can answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thanks, TJ. I had a couple of questions and then I'll pass it over to the commission. When you say clean wash stone, what size stone are we talking about?
See if we get call detail.
I didn't see anywhere in the detail that,
Can certainly provide a spec for that. And,
okay,
obviously, you know, make any modifications if the commission chooses.
yeah, if you could provide that. It looks like the pavement that's being retained is just what that's existing in front of the garage now.
Correct.
That's the only area, okay. Your propane tanks are being removed. At some point, there was a note there. Are there any tanks proposed in the new plan?
No, there aren't. I think it's, the plan is for electric.
Okay. What is the permanent trench patch detail on the second sheet? On the detail sheet?
That would just be for any disturbance of Northern Boulevard for the new utility connections, if we were you know, if we disturb the roadway and have to patch.
Okay, all right, got it. And then I would like to see you map out where the mitigation planting is proposed, rather than just having arrows. We won't be able to evaluate whether you're in compliance long-term if we don't see where the areas are that you're proposing to use as mitigation.
Yeah.
And then-
Yes, I'm sorry, just a question on that. Would the commission prefer one larger area or a couple smaller areas, or is it kind of?
Well-
We're open to it either way. Just
Right now, you just have a +7 for dune vegetation. We usually look for 1.5 to 1 from the impact, so it would be
Yeah,
helpful
we
if
can-
you provide that
Yeah, and then delineate a natural area.
and delineate that area, yes. And then, you know, this house will be elevated, so you'll be off the dune vertically. And I assume that you're gonna be on. Well, there's a foundation plan, I think, in the next page, or at least a preliminary one
Yeah, yes, this will all be up in the air.
by elevated, how many feet?
Believe it is 9. Yes, it's I believe it's 6 or.
Yeah, if you could blow that up, the profile, that would be really helpful.
Looks like 9 feet.
Okay. And your
Yeah,
flood
by
elevation
9
is that,
feet above, basically.
what's your flood elevation there?
16.
So there's no base flood elevation, there's just a velocity zone.
Is it that 17.58?
No, that's your existing ground elevation. Okay. I'm gonna pass it
Right.
along to,
Yeah, we do have a note on the first page.
so, because the base flood elevation is different than the velocity zone elevation, so that's what I'm wondering.
It says on the right, bottom right of the screen, base flood elevation 16. Am I getting that wrong, or is it?
Yeah, but VE 16, yep. That's the velocity zone elevation, which is different than the base flood elevation, but your existing mean ground elevation is, you're still in the velocity zone, but there's a difference between 16 is the wave height, not the actual level of flooding on the ground. So I'm just gonna circle back to that after I have the members provide their comments. So I'll just go down the road here. Woody, do you have any comments on this?
No, I don't have any comments or questions at this time. Thank you.
Frank?
No questions. Thank you.
Diane?
I just had a question about the wash stone. So the existing structures on the ground, that's gonna be gone. Everything's going up on piles. Is the wash stone gonna be underneath the house? So I'm trying to, if underneath
Yeah,
the
so it'd
house
be
all the way
kind of
up to
acting.
Northern Boulevard, is that the idea?
Correct, yeah. It'd be utilized as essentially the driveway.
Is there a reason for that other than just
And the
having?
car would be parking under the door.
What was that?
It's a drive under.
Oops, sorry.
Oh, I see. Okay, okay. That answers my question.
Anything else, Diane?
No.
Okay, what did I miss? Nick?
No, no questions from me right now.
All right, I know that at the last meeting, there was discussion about a site visit. Members had wanted to schedule a site visit. That was something that Bob had talked about. Is there still interest in conducting a site visit on this?
I'd like to do a site visit. Possible.
Yes, I would too.
Okay. All right, we can talk about scheduling that. I'm gonna turn it over to the public. Are there any comments from the public on this? It looks like there's one raised hand from Jeff Roloffs.
Yes, hi, thank you. Jeff Roloffs, I'm the attorney out of Newburyport representing the direct abutters to the south, Tim and Anna Drost at 76 Northern Boulevard. Can I quickly share my screen? I just want to, I'm going to go back to the slides that I quickly ran through last week, just to emphasize the main concern that we have here. So you saw these last week, but this is the house in blue is the Ward's house that's proposed to be removed. The dune to the right here is our biggest concern. The proposal is to put a house on this property bigger than what's there. The exterior wall of the proposed house is just slightly beyond the exterior wall of what's here. It actually will also, the corner will be, the existing house is kind of notched in the back corner. So the corner of the new house will also be closer to this dune than what's there. So this dune is critically important, not just to my neighbors, but to the whole neighborhood. You'll remember from, well, you can see from these images that this is on a very thin slice of land between the ocean and the basin. My clients are just to the south here. There's been a lot of effort that's been put into nourishing these dunes and establishing dunes that are robust and serve all the functions that they serve, not just by my clients, but other neighbors here. And the wards have made some changes to the plans that we think head in the right direction in terms of protecting the dune. A few things that I want to highlight that we haven't seen on the plans. Number one, there's no limit of work shown on the plans. I assume that's because it's going to be tied to the exterior walls of the building, but the question is whether that's feasible. So looking at this image here, we had requested protocol, that we think the applicant should develop some protocol for the construction methodology. Can you really put in the piles right at the base of this dune? How are you going to construct this walls without putting equipment on the dune? So, I think the applicant has a little work to do in terms of working with their professionals to come up with a construction plan, just to ensure that everyone knows where the limits of work are and how they're going to be actually respected during construction. The plans do show a detail for a siltation fence, but they don't show any location on the plan where that's actually proposed. I don't know if that's appropriate here or not. I defer to the professionals on that, but again, I think that's part of the protocol. And then obviously, in terms of any special conditions, when you get to the point of contemplating an approval here, the pre-construction meeting is going to be critically important here to understand the condition that the site's in and how they're planning to proceed, how they're going to phase it so that everything's going to be protected. We think that it's important to require for the work that's being done in the vicinity of this dune, that work is under the oversight of a professional wetlands consultant, somebody who can confirm that what they're proposing to do and doing is actually being done properly in a way that's going to protect that dune. In the event there are inadvertent impacts, they did include a note on their plan that those would be restored. I think it would be worthwhile to elaborate on what restoration methods will be implemented in the event that there are impacts to the area beyond the proposed wall. So that at the end of the project, we're going to see a dune that looks like this right up to the edge of the house as it currently is, obviously, to the new house. And it won't be to the edge of the wall because it's going to be elevated. I understand that, but we want to make sure that that wall is the delineating line between the house, the stones underneath it, and then a robust vegetated dune as there is currently. So that's the biggest concern. I mean, you can see the importance that this dune plays, not just for us, but for the whole neighborhood. And there is ample room for mitigation planting, and you've already talked about that. So we totally support that. So I think there's a little more work for them to do here, more work by the professionals who are familiar with these construction techniques. I'm not, what equipment is going to be used to put these piles in? Where is it going to be located? If you're putting a dune right in at the edge of that dune there, a pile, you're going to put it in at the edge of that dune. Is that work only going to impact where the pile is? Or is there a zone around it that's going to be impacted? And what's the protocol for minimizing impacts and then dealing with them? So we just think there's more protocol and details that need to be fleshed out before the commission can really evaluate the impacts of the project and come to a conclusion. So I will stop there. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. That's helpful. So in light of the fact that there's a request for a site visit, and I think that the applicant was probably aware that was the direction we were heading. Do the members have some suggestions on when we might take a look at this together? I think we typically do mornings. I think is it Tuesday mornings or Thursday mornings? Either one is fine. Looking at
Tuesday, the 11th can work.
Tuesday at 8 a.m. on the 11th. Does that work for everyone?
Works for me.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, great.
That was Tuesday, the 11th at 8 a.m.
Yeah, and can I make a recommendation, TJ, that you stake out the building corners, especially the ones that are closest to the dune, prior to the site visit? Is that possible?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll stake out what we can, or at a minimum, I can just look on.
Okay, and then you've heard
I'm only
about,
gonna fall.
I'm sorry, I missed that last part.
Sorry, yeah, no, we'll stake out what we can. Some of
Okay.
it may fall on pavement or within the existing structure, but.
All right, and then you will hopefully between now and the next meeting provide a response to DEP's comments to the extent that they are now applicable under the revised plan, and also be thinking about a construction sequence that will protect the dune. I think that will be helpful.
Mary, were you looking for more mitigation as well?
Yes, so 1.5 to 1 mitigation.
Yeah, and we'll show a specific location with an area.
Yes, to locate the area. Yep. So do we have the applicant's consent to continue this meeting till March 18th?
Yes.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to continue the hearing until March 18th with a site visit on March 11th at 8 a.m.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Diane,
Yes.
Woody,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
and Mick?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, new public hearings, we have none. General project discussion, Kents Island Marsh project updates. I think this has to do with the bridge that was constructed on the access road out to Kents Island.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, and that they were required to submit regular annual reports on the status of the restoration efforts. I don't know if anyone had a chance to take a look at those, if they have any thoughts or comments. It looks like it's been a kind of an up and down, not a linear restoration. There's been some loss of some of the plantings because of the drought and some erosion. But I know Mick goes by that all the time, and I've been by it a lot too. You know, it's certainly an improvement over what was there before. So I think that's just for informational purposes. We don't need to take any action on it. Mason, do you have any other? Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, so you can see that, you know, the scour basins that existed, you know, prior to the restoration were pretty large there. And some of that area is now reverting back to salt marsh, which is great.
Mhm.
Now that the restriction is gone. And the side slopes were planted mostly with marsh elder, looks like. And some of that died off during the drought in 2023, I think it was. But it's coming back. There's been some introduction of some upland species as well. They didn't mention any invasives, but it is kind of a mixed bag there on the side slopes. They did a pretty thorough report, which was nice.
Yes.
So, I think there was a lot of permitting associated with this, so we were the beneficiaries of the reporting that was required by other agencies. So any other updates, Mason?
I think that's all at this time.
Great. Great, thanks, everybody. Do we have a motion to move on for dinner?
So moved.
All right,
Second.
all in favor?
Yay.
Aye.
All right, I'll see you on Tuesday.
Thank
All
you.
right. See you
Thanks,
tomorrow.
Okay.
Thanks, Mary.